How's it going, guys? And welcome to the showdown between the Dwarves, led by the High King Thorgrim, and the Greenskins, who are going to be led by Warzog the Baconator. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and have some fun. So in the front line, or I should say Vanguard, I do have two groups of miners with blasting charges, and I really like to use these guys as a bit of a roadblock. You guys have probably seen this with a lot of Dwarf players. They'll put two or three, or even an entire battle line of miners out in Vanguard right here. And what that really does effectively is it kind of halts your opponent's advance and buys more time for you to get in position, allows your Bugman's Rangers or artillery, if you do have it, to do a little bit more damage. So I definitely like them for that purpose. You kind of just run them forward, use the blasting charges on some of these low tier troops like goblins and orc boys, and most players will send in their not Vanguard, but their squishier fodder troops first to take the initial brunt of the damage. And the blasting charges are definitely very effective against like goblins and orc boys and lightly armored troops like that. So I do have two miners in the front, and worst case scenario, they do have decent armor piercing values for their cost. 22 weapon strength, obviously very low, but I think a large proportion of that is armor piercing. Let's go ahead and check. So 17, so that's not bad at all. So they can actually put a little bit of a dent in Black Orcs. I mean, head to head, they'll just get annihilated, but if you're supporting, other more elite troops like the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers or some, Dwarf Warriors, even I guess are elite compared to miners, but pretty much any of your other troops are going to be pretty effective. In the secondary line, I do have the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers. And these guys are one of those regiments renowned that are pretty much always good, even in a matchup in which you need a ton of armor piercing. Their stats are just so bonkers. 82 melee defense. I think they have like 50 melee attack, which, in comparison to their melee defense might look bad, proportionately speaking, but it's still very, very good. And these guys are just linebackers. They never break. 125 armor, charged defense against all. I mean, they just bring so much to the table. Two groups of Dwarf Warriors on the flanks. In the back, I do have miners. And then I think I have a group of hammers lurking over in the forest. One of the more common things you do see the Greenskins bring against the Dwarfs is obviously going to be a ton of Black Orcs, and Hammers have pretty poor defensive stats, so what I'd like to do is use Miners and Dwarf Warriors and these frontline troops to take the initial charge from the Black Orcs and mitigate that charge bonus of 30, and then if you want to mix in some more elite troops like Longbeards or Hammers, you then follow up. Thorgrim Grudge Bear with his great book of Grudges, which provides, I think it's 9 melee attack now. Let's go ahead and take a look. It used to be 12 way back in the days of old, but now I think it's 9, so still pretty powerful. I do have a very spread out formation, so it won't be as good, but I just like him quite a bit as a lord. I do have Bugman's Rangers, or the Althar's Raiders, who have the armor-piercing missile attacks marked of Althar. And then I do have two groups of Bugman's Rangers who are just beasts. These guys are rocking awesome combat stats. You can see right now, I think that's because of High King Thorgrim, but I think their base melee attacks like 20, like in the 20 somewhere. 38 melee defense and also 31 weapon strength, so they can hold their own if your front line is compromised. They regenerate, and obviously missile pressure on the Greenskins is always good. Arguably, though, Thunderers would be a little bit better against like a Black Orc composition, but the Bugman's Rangers are very good at like focusing down the Rusty Arrows and the backline troops of the Greenskins, and then I have the Althar's Raider here for AP and Hammer, so I figured that was enough. For my opponent, front line of Goblins, he does also have some Orc Boys, he has some Hog Chariots over here, so definitely going to let the bacon flow. In the secondary line, Black Orcs are going to be the meat and potatoes of his army. He does also have a Goblin Big Boss. I don't know if he has the whole Goblin Firing Squad. No Rusty Arrows, which I was a little bit surprised about, but he does have the Hog Lord Warzog back here. So Warzog is definitely a very strong pick against the Dwarves. He has pretty good AP and a charge bonus of 86. So if he does have to fight in melee, he can actually cycle charge like Runesmiths and things like that into the Shadow Realm. On top of that, here we go, Fist of Gork, and then he has the foot. So I'm excited to see how he uses that. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So you can see the blasting charge is initially just going to be hitting into these Orc Boys, a little bit of pressure on the other side, doing some okay HP damage. You can see, unfortunately, the Chariots of my opponent are going to be coming in here. These Hog Chariots don't have, I think, the best armor-piercing values, do they? Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, maybe they changed that. I could have sworn that they didn't have, like, the armor-piercing tooltip. I mean, every unit on paper does have, some armor-piercing, but I guess they're predominantly AP now, which is pretty cool. Or maybe I just missed it before. Regardless, they do charge in and do some okay damage, but Dwarves did get that really nice mass increase, and you can see this one Chariot just can't get past these Dwarves. Definitely a testament to that mass increase right there since the Tomb Kings. And you can also see the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. And whenever I brought two Runesmiths, each of them is going to be like a Rune of Wrath and Rune bot. Just spam it every chance you get on Black Orcs. It's going to be pretty cost effective for you. Over here, the Chariot's coming in on the far side. It does charge through my Dwarf Warriors, does some really, really good impact damage. And the Bugman's Rangers are providing some decent overwatch. And the Boar Chariots do have 90 armor, so they will be somewhat durable here. But it looks like some of them do get caught up on the Dwarves again, and they're going to be taking a little bit of damage. In the front line, the High King Thorgrim is leading his boys to victory, or, the Dawi, he's doing them proud, and smashing some of these Black Orcs. He tends to get a little bit overzealous, because he does have, decent mass, so he can push through sometimes. You have to kind of watch him and make sure he doesn't push through into the center of a group of Black Orcs, but obviously, given that melee attack to these Norgrimlings Ironbreakers is going to put their melee defense up to 40, or melee attack up to 49. Yeah, it's kind of just like a bit of a wet noodle contest here. Neither of these guys will do much damage. Effigy of the Get going down on the High King Thorgrim, so I did try and pull him back, but my opponent noticed he was overextended and kind of pins him with these Orcs who have Here We Go, so very well played there. Regardless, the Overwatch from the Bugman's Rangers starting to rain in on these goblins. On the far side, I'm able to use my Dragonback Slayers to collapse on these chariots and just take them to pieces. Dragonback Slayers do have this really, and this is the reason why I think they're a very, very solid pick, and I'm sure most people would agree. They do have this power of the Dragonback. So whenever they hit anyone, it's going to apply a 36% speed debuff, which I think is incredibly powerful. So very good anti-cav stuff as long as you have like other troops to take the brunt of the charge. I think they do have charge defense as well, which is pretty cool. But I do overextend a little bit on those chariots. My opponent does get hog wild in my back line, so the Bugman's Ranger is going to take the full brunt of these angry hogs. And man, only 14 melee defense on these guys. I feel like even these Bugman's Rangers might be able to like put a huge dent in these guys. But he does get a good charge. But regardless, I reacted pretty quickly with the Dragonback Slayers, who are going to come in and throw some of those Mohawk chops on these guys, and hopefully be able to drag them down to 41 speed. So not that much faster than the Dwarfs here. They're going to take a ton of casualties with their very low melee defense. So aside from that, the Bugman's Rangers on the far side are able to get the support of the Altar's Raiders and actually beat down these chariots, which was really, really cool. And when they started to run, and that's what I like about Bugman's Rangers. They're so durable for defensive stats. The Goblin King was one of the first guys who really showed me their effectiveness a long, long time ago. The Altar's Raiders here, pretty sturdy in their own right, I think. No, they're not as sturdy. They only have 26 melee defense, but obviously a very powerful unit with that mark. And when it does come down to it against Black Orcs, they can do quite well. You can see my opponent over here getting the Goblin Archers, and this is something I recommend for Greenskin players out there. Whenever you're playing Dwarfs, just use Goblin Archers to shoot down Slayers. It's a very, very good trade for you. Slayers go down quite quickly to missile fire, even from Goblins. In the main fight, you can see Thorgrim is continuing to fight the Black Orcs, and the Hoglord is over here as well. He does have good AP, like I said, and a charge bonus of 86+. So the leadership is kind of fighting here in the center. Thorgrim has taken a lot of damage though. You can see he's at about 3.4k HP, and that's actually more than Wurzog has in total. So I think a while back, I can't remember when, but I think the High King Thorgrim got a pretty substantial buff to his HP. The Runesmith here also providing that Rune of Wrath and Rune support, and the Hammers are just going to pound town on these Black Orcs. I wonder who wins head-to-head. I think it would be pretty decent for the Hammers. They're down to 21 models, so and these Black Orcs obviously have a huge numbers advantage. It was basically like a 2v1 engagement here. My backline is getting compromised a little bit. You can see I have Miners and some other troops rallying, getting a great, blasting charge right into the back of those Black Orcs, and these Hammers are just doing work. I mean, 44 kills, and they've been fighting 2 Black Orcs like this entire time, so definitely paying their dues. I did pull back the High King Thorgrim to help deal with these chariots a little bit, and it looks like the Bugman's Rangers are able to fend the chariot off, and the Slayers just kind of roaming around, seeing where they're needed. You can use them to clean up Orc Boys and things like that, but you obviously don't want to do that unless you have to, like in this situation. My opponent has like a huge flank coming down, so you can see Black Orcs and Orc Boys just coming to collapse in my back line, and I still have a lot of stopping power back here. I have these Rangers, I also have my Altar's Raiders, and I really want to kind of keep that intact because they're just wasting these Goblin back lines here. And I do also have some Miners that are going to push through and hopefully shut them down. You can see these Miners actually got through the back line as well, and they're going to be cracking the skulls of these Gobos. I mean, if there's a fight that's going to make Miners feel like elite warriors, it's definitely going to be a showdown versus Goblins. So Thorgrim back in the front line here. I did have to use my Slayers to pin down those Black Orcs. But you can see the Bugman's Rangers getting attacked by Orc Boys and by Chariots, and they're just like, they're resilient. I mean, they regenerate HP. 38 melee defense against the 29 melee attack is going to be a decent trade for you. And you can see they might actually be able to beat these Orc Boys. I'm not sure, and this Chariot, which is really, really cool. Thorgrim, though, taking a little bit of damage. He does get the FG of the Get, which does some decent HP damage. You can see he's pinned. I think does it do overtime damage? I'll have to take a look at that, or is it like a static effect? But regardless, he's taking a little bit of damage, getting danger close. You guys can see the bounce power is still very even at this point, but something that's very good for me is I do have a Runesmith who will probably be coming back. A Rune of Wrath and Rune will be very good against these Black Orcs, but my backline is now kind of secure. These Bugman's Rangers only lost like 4 or 5 models, and they just beat the brakes off these Orc Boys here. So they're going to kind of reform ranks right here and start shooting into these guys. And I do have the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, 41 models still rocking, having been fighting Black Orcs and the Baconator here the entire game. He pops, there we go, and they're still just standing fast and not going down. Definitely a true testament to the Dawi resilience. And you can see the High King Thorgrim's going to be coming in here, and he will definitely annihilate Wurzog in a duel. So he gets in there. And did Wurzog used to do magic damage? I can't remember. Yeah, if he did, I guess not. But the High King gets in here, and he's going to be attacking the Goblin Big Boss. He does have the support of the Ironbreakers, which is always a very safe place to park him, because they're not really going to break. I mean, it takes so much to break the Ironbreakers. It's pretty insane. Some Black Orcs coming around the flank doing some work. In the meantime, Bugman's Rangers and other troops are just kind of positioning on this hill and obviously trying to run away from these Goblins, who I did intercept with some Miners. But Thorgrim is not going quietly into this good night. He has 62 melee defense, 120 armor. But the Hoglord's at about 1600 HP. It's a pretty close fight. Bounce power is still pretty darn even, but it's finally coming in my favor, I think. You can see the Miners sweeping in here. The Runesmith and the Black Orcs are starting to buckle. The firing line is back online, so they can start shooting at the enemy Lord. They can shoot at these Black Orcs who are retreating. And the Miners doing a ton of work this game. I'm a huge fan of Miners in the Dwarven roster. Definitely a pretty good filler unit here. So in the back, the Bugman's Rangers. In worst case scenario, if like my entire front line collapsed, I could pull these Bugman's Rangers into melee, and they would do a ton of work. The Hammers on the far side are just still fighting. I can't believe it after that. I mean, you guys saw them. They have 7 models right now, just chasing these guys down, just laying an absolute beating on these goblins, doing their people proud. I think that's going to be pretty much it. You can see the Baconator here is trying to run away, but I do have the Bugman's Rangers and other Overwatch troops just shooting at him, making sure he routes off the battlefield, which will then kick in my opponent to army losses. So very well played. It was a close game. I mean, for 85, 90% of that game, the bounce power was dead even. A couple moments of securing my back line that I think were able to really pull it for me, but it was quite a bit of fun. But as far as the army goes, I liked it quite a bit. The Norgrimling's Ironbreakers really hold down your center, make sure that your main kind of point of your army is going to be sustainable. Dwarf Warriors do okay against Black Orcs. I mean, they'll bring him down to like 80, 70% by themselves and then die themselves. But if you support them with, some hammers in the back, or at least a group of hammers, and I don't really like using hammers as a frontline troop because when they take that initial charge, they take a ton of damage, and I feel like that's very cost ineffective. So you might as well use Dwarf Warriors and Miners to take the brunt of the Black Orcs. Then you could follow up with some more elite troops, and that could even be Longbeards with great weapons, but... the Althar's Raiders did pretty decent. The Bugman's Rangers obviously pimps as always. You saw, like, even when my backline got compromised, they were able to really handle those Orc Boys, whereas, like, a group of Quarrelers might have been able to do it as well, but I don't know, it's hard to say. Their combat stats are much lower and they don't regenerate, so I think they were pretty cool as well. Delbert Runesmith also very good against Black Orcs, and yeah, that was pretty much it. For my opponent's army, I did like the Hog Lord. I actually like him a lot. Usually I just bring the buffs and spam them, or you can even use Azag and be using Fate of Buna, which is pretty good actually against the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers and Hammers and those type of units. But, Greenskins have options. You can even go with the new and improved Grimgor, although I still think he's not as competitive as the 2 options I mentioned before. Black Orcs are good. Orc Boys is, filler unit and some Goblins. I definitely like that quite a bit. He put a lot of marbles in his chariots and his cav. I mean, the rest of his army is, fairly standard for this matchup, but this is where he kind of deviated and tried something a little bit different, and I just felt like the chariots were super ineffective. I mean, they just got chopped down by even my back line. I don't know, chariots I don't know if he wasn't pulling them through or if they're just not as effective as they used to be, but I felt like maybe, getting the Rusty Airs would have been super useful too, but in the Savage Orc Boys, I think the armor can be pretty helpful against the Dwarves for sure. I mean, I don't know if what I would bring. Probably the Squig Herds are just a lot better. I think just going with like the Durkid Squigs and the Squig Hoppers and all that kind of stuff is going to be much stronger. The Poison, Armor Piercing, they're cheaper, just brings a lot more to the table. But regardless, very well played by my opponent. Cool Bean, definitely tried to make those Hog Wild Chariots work. It was quite a bit of fun to see, and yeah. Hopefully this was also a very good break from all the Tomb Kings content. I know I've been putting out a ton of Tomb Kings content since it came out, but I'm going to be trying to kind of switch it back and have more of a regular routine here in the next couple weeks. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this grudge match. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this grudge match, and take care.